Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Thank you all for tuning in for a spontaneous, impromptu, and beautiful webinar slash download from Portal to Ascension show here. So hello to everybody joining in on YouTube, and hi to everybody on the podcast, because we also have a radio show on multiple platforms: Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and many others. So thank you so much if you're tuning in on there, because over the last few weeks, our platform has actually got our reach on those platforms on the podcast has actually gone, a little more exponential than it has been in the past. So thank you to everybody there. And if you are listening in on the podcast and you want to go ahead and leave a review, you like the content that you hear here, please go ahead and do that, because leaving a review, giving us stars on these podcast platforms allows us to get more people. And to whoever's joining in on YouTube, please do check us out on the podcast platforms as well. So today is an impromptu, not so impromptu because we planned it a couple of days ago, but more impromptu than the ones that I normally plan out a few weeks ahead, in which I am getting the opportunity to once again introduce you to someone that is new to Portal to Ascension, that I've just connected with recently, and complete resonance with his energy, his mission, and what he's up to. So came up with a decision a couple of days ago to go ahead and do this live stream here and introduce him to you, and as well as the amazing work that he's doing. So we're going to get right into it. And the individual I'm speaking about is VerDarLuz, and a little bit about him. After his double lung collapse at the tender age of 17, VerDarLuz committed to seize the day and take a deep dive into life. A traveler to 40 countries, author of 2 books, Codex of the Soul and Aquarius Dawns, and creator of Divine Timing Online School, VerDarLuz uniquely blends systems of self-awareness, such as astrology, human design, and shamanic therapies, into his holistic life and business coaching practice. He teaches entrepreneurs, families, and couples how to honor and integrate their core patterns and archetypes. VerDarLuz empowers clients by helping them strategize when and where of life, optimal time mapping, and astrolocality power places, as well as the who, harmonic relating, in both love and business. Since 2006, he has translated the occult and complex into a pragmatic language through his down-to-earth and playful speaking style. VerDarLuz facilitates transformational workshops involving astrology, conscious relating, keynote concerts, dance, and shamanic healing worldwide. And he also has one coming out pretty soon that we're going to show you in just a moment here. So everybody, join me in welcoming VerDarLuz. Hey, brother.
Thank you. Hey, brother. Good to be here. Welcome.
Good to see you too, man. So, firstly, I think your audio is a little low. It was okay in the beginning, but it just went down. Could you turn it up a bit?
Yeah, and sorry if I think my computer's fan is doing its thing. So,
If you go next
yeah.
to the mute sign, click the up arrow, audio settings, and then you can turn your volume up. I want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Yeah, I think it's as loud as it can be right now.
All right, well, let's just go with it, man. So thank you so much for being here, brother. I'm so glad that we're connected. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I DJ'd a set last night in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so that was fun for ecstatic dance.
Oh,
And
that's awesome, dude.
it's been a beautiful time out here the last couple of months. I've seen quite a few UFOs and
Mhm.
lots of shooting stars as I gaze at Orion and contemplate the mysteries. So the skies here are just so inspiring.
Yeah, I can't wait to come down there in a few weeks and check it out myself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So let's start with this. Why don't you, like I touch on it in your bio that, age 17, there was a huge shift for you. But what was your journey like before that? Do you feel, obviously, I feel like we're all on the spiritual journey through our whole life, right? But
Yeah.
what was your life before, and how did that milestone kind of look like when you shifted into eventually coming into the work that you do now?
Well, the more I've reflected on it, I was a very spiritual child, actually. I was raised in Christianity, so I kind of lived that lived what I learned in the Bible, and I went to Catholic school, but yeah, 17, 15, and 17 were big markers for me. I had to go in the hospital for a leg surgery that I had when I was 15. That was really intense. And then at 17, I spontaneously collapsed both of my lungs. And it was the greatest outpouring of love that I've ever received in my life. Every person I knew came and visited me, and it was one of those things where I wrote about this in my second book, Aquarius Dawns, about the wounded healer archetype. And I realized that, if I was in an indigenous culture, for instance, and this had happened to me, I probably would have been selected to go down the path of becoming the shaman for the tribe, because if you survive like these near-death experiences,
True.
a young being, then there's a sign that maybe you're supposed to do this work. And so as I studied like Mayan shamanism and Mircea Eliade's work on shamanism, I started to realize, whoa, this was my path. And I started in my 20s, my mid 20s, I was doing a lot of artwork, visionary photography, and I was also starting to work with plant medicines,
Hmm.
and had a few experiences where I felt like my lung collapse was actually the totem spirits coming into me, my bird energies. And now I perform with, and I work really deeply with the owl. I perform as Celestial, but the bird energies are very strong in my spirit. And I think that the lung collapse was part of that idea around becoming a messenger, becoming someone who can take some cosmic information like astrology or human design and help translate that for others to integrate that into their life purpose and their careers and their relationships. And as an astrologer too, I'm a Gemini rising. Gemini is the air sign, the messenger, the spirit. And I started to put these things together. I know you're connected with the Mayan culture, and for me, that was a big awakening. That started my astrological path by studying the 2012 end date. And my day sign is the wind, the messenger, the spirit, the same concept again. So all of these synchronicities came together, and it was like, okay, well, being a coach, teacher, an astrologer was like it became very obvious when all of these different languages started to coalesce and show me like, hey, this is your path. And that's why I love, connecting with people and tribe who are willing to see how all of those links, come together to form your soul's journey here. And I love sharing that with clients and community.
Beautiful. I love what you do because it's I'm really into full circle awareness, and you definitely have not only experienced a lot of modalities, but all the things that you're interested in. It seems like in the course that you're doing, for example, you really pulled it all together to create a holistic approach on what's going on right now, so that you could provide people with all the different angles. Not, I mean, obviously there's infinite amount of angles, but as many as possible that allow them to really tap into the truth of who they are, and and not only that, our connection to the cosmos, what's going on out there, who are we, where do we come from. So why don't we get into some of those things right there? And I know you had texted me before saying you had a few things that you wanted to share, so we can take this wherever you want. But yeah, let's get into what you've created with this course.
Well, yeah, the new course is it's something I've just been receiving so much in the last few months, and then came into contact with Portal like very synchronistically, and just been kind of binging on all the beautiful videos and conferences and so many wise beings on Portal to Ascension. So thank you again for
Thanks, brother.
your commitment, your devotion, and the community you've built. And so it's been inspiring to me. You know, yeah, I guess after, I mean, I've had a number of experiences of connection, interaction, contact, through meditation, through medicine work, through, you know, nature experiences. And, and then recently, like through my astrological studies and research, I've been doing a lot more work with the fixed stars. And so in astrology, most astrology is practicing planetology because we're just using the planets, which is the what we call the ecliptic, the path of the sun. So really you have these 12, 13 constellations that are in this path of the sun, but that's a small band of the sky. So the ancients, especially like in Egypt, Egyptian astrology was really based on the stars, and the stars were all gods. And you would have a god that would be at the top of the sky, where they called the realm of the imperishable stars, or the gods who never died. But then sometimes there would be a god that would, or a star that would come down and touch the earth plane, the horizon, and then go into the underworld.
Mhm.
And then after a few days or a week or a month would rise again. And this was very significant. In fact, if you can hear the story in me, this is the story of Christ. This is the story of Jesus, like the God who comes and then dies and is reborn. That concept actually comes a lot out of stellar mythology and stellar practice from the sages and the wise ones of Egypt. So what we're talking about is visual astrology. When you look at the sky, the entire sky, and so this course is going to weave in how to interpret some particular constellations and stars. Like in the first couple classes, we're going to work with Orion and the Pleiades. So we'll work with Alcyon, we'll work with Betelgeuse, we'll work with Rigel, all of these major stars. But also we're going to look at the channeled teachings from these systems, what we know about some of the galactic history, the beings. We're also going to look at the mythology cross-culturally with indigenous traditions or from Egypt or the Mayan lands, what this constellation or star meant, and also look at some sacred sites associated with them and kind of really tune ourselves to all of these different vibrations that this star or constellation has had in our collective noosphere, collective mind. And then we're going to do some practices ourselves with breath work, with dance, with writing, with meditation to receive messages from our stellar family at this time. What are we holding? What messages or medicine can we carry for the collective? And how can we connect with the, this soul history, but also our, future unfolding now, because this is a very critical time on the planet to connect with these beings.
Definitely. And you say like bridging dimensions within um this whole program here. Well, it's called, well, I think this is the, I don't know if this is the, oh, this is the title of your organization, maybe Bridging
Yeah,
Dimensions and Ascension.
Bridging Dimensions is actually a mystery school that I co-facilitated last year. So we did a year-long program with a lot of astro mythology, astrotheology. So each month was archetypally based, and we would do, teachings from different traditions on the relationship, for instance, with Aries, and we would talk about like the rebirth of the sun at that year, at that part of the year, all the different associations cross culturally with that, and sacred sites associated with that. Like we worked with Apollo, the sun god, and then we talked about Delphi and the oracles, and so it was a mystery school for a year. So this is a little bit of like a continuation of that same idea, like taking the mysteries now more deeply into the specific stars and constellations.
Okay. So what is astro mythology and astrobiology, and how do they relate to what you're going to be teaching?
Yeah, well, so astromythology is just really a way of understanding the primary myths cross-culturally around the world, which mostly have to do with the stars and creation stories. Like the Mayans talking a lot about the Orion Nebula, which is right under the belt of Orion, and that this is they refer to those as the three hearthstones, and that this is where we all emerge from. And as probably most listeners know, nebula are star nurseries, so they're birthplaces of stars. Thus, our star was born out of there. We all come from there. We're 99% of the mass of the solar system is the sun, so we are all stardust. Our blood is made, from the iron in our blood is made from a supernova, which turns into a nebula. So we are literally stardust. So we will talk about some different cross-cultural mythologies about the specific stars and constellations. So that's astromythology. Astrobiology is a very, we'd say, a relatively new science of studying life throughout the solar system and throughout the galaxy. And this is really going to be amped up in the next few years with the James Webb Telescope, because it's going to explore the atmospheres of a number of exoplanets, especially those in the TRAPPIST-1 system, and as well as looking
Amazing.
at, yeah, right. And then we're looking at places like the different moons of Jupiter, like Europa, or like and Enceladus in the Saturn system, which we know have ice and water. And so we imagine life. So astrobiology is like, what is the life in these different planets, in these different stars, or in these exoplanets, or in these moons? Like, so um, my sense is that what's happening is, and what's going to continue to happen, I think the astrology really supports this, is that we're going to see through the telescopes and through these missions, like I think there's a Clipper mission to Europa in 2024, we're going to see that we're going to find life, in many, many, many different forms. And as we do that kind of externally with our technology, we're going to continue to do that more and more internally and vice versa, right? So through our
Right.
meditations, the more that we all open now to connecting with our star families, the more also that's going to assist the kind of findings with our external technologies, right? There's always that
Yeah.
kind of, as we do the inner
Feedback
work,
loop.
the outer work. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's that reflection for sure. Because as long as we do the inner work, the outside world will reflect it. And as the
Correct.
outside world is uncovering things that reflects on us, it's
Yeah.
completely paradoxical and amazing. So I'm going to share screen now. And for everybody in the podcast, you can check it out in the description. I want to share the page, right? And I want you to talk through it a little bit. And then I want to go a little deeper and ask some follow-up questions about some about extraterrestrial races. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm gonna mute myself because someone's doing construction all of a sudden. And I'm going to share the screen, and you talk through what people can expect.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah.
So
So
tell us what inspired this, and what they're going to get from it, and the info. And I know you had 2 modules coming up, and then you have 2 afterwards. So just a
yeah.
breakdown.
Well, I wanted to actually do like a 9 class series, but I thought it might be a little too much all at once. So I thought to break it up into a few different what I call portals, and each portal having 2 different constellations or star systems that we work with, and then one class that's more dedicated to sort of the learning about the astronomy of that star and that constellation, what's really going on up there, like the life cycle of stars, um, the nebula, depending on what that constellation or star represents. So we'll have actual astronomy teachings, and for me, like I just get so like inspired and open when I'm seeing these nebula and these learning about the life cycles of stars and how these are archetypes, these are beings, on a cosmic level. And so we're going to learn about that. And then the mythology, not only sort of like Egyptian, let's say, but a lot of indigenous cultures like the Hopi, the Zuni, the Ojibwa, Dakota, all these different cultures, the Maori. And so in one constellation, we're going to kind of travel around the world and through time and see how these different cultures interpreted these different constellations, and how they had rituals and relationships with these stars at certain times of the year. And we can continue to do that today. And so we'll look at some of the sacred sites associated. Obviously, like most people know about Egypt and the Giza Plateau and the connection with Orion's belt, but there's many, many others all around the world with Orion, from Japan to the Rapa Nui and Easter Island, and there's many, many, many associations there. And the same with the Pleiades. So we'll be packed with a lot of cultures to study in the first couple classes. The astrology comes in because every one of us has a configuration of stars when we were born, stars that were rising or setting before the sun, or they were, for instance, with one of the planets in our chart. And this gets very interesting because this opens up a kind of galactic awareness. So, for instance, I had a big revelation when I realized that my rising sign, which is the first degree of Gemini, is actually exactly conjunct the star Alcyon, which is the central star of the Pleiades. And I always have felt a connection with that star system, both on the just looking and feeling it, but as I learned about the teachings and the vibrations of love and compassion and art that seem to emanate from this this higher realm of beings, I felt such a connection. And then I looked at my chart. This is a long time ago now, but and I saw, wow, okay, my rising sign, how I identify on the surface, my outer mask is right there with the central star of the Pleiades. And all of us have these kind of galactic or interdimensional connections with certain star families, and your chart will actually show you that. And this is where it gets really, really fascinating. And you can see, ancient history connections, like your old soul connections, and also recent connections, depending on what planets or what parts of your chart are associated with certain systems. We're talking
Just a quick
Sirius,
comment. That's
Mars.
pretty
Yeah,
awesome because we know astrology, you can navigate, reality quite a lot with understanding astrology and, reasons why you do things and so much more. But to utilize astrology to connect to the potential that you could actually have incarnated from this place, or not even incarnated, but beyond that, the theme of that incarnation is really relevant to your experience now on Earth.
absolutely. And like whether it's Arcturus or Sirius or Vega, I mean, all of these are actual star degrees, zodiac degrees, and they can be very, very powerfully associated with your chart, especially a conjunction with one of your planets, like the same degree, or an opposition can be a very, very telling sign of your connection to this star family. And then there's also times of the year and of the month where we can open our channels to meditate, to receive, and connect with these star families. So we're going to talk about when we can do these open, these portals are more open for us, right? So then that leads us to the other part of the class, which is the channel teachings we've learned from great channels about these systems, about these beings, from Pleiades or Orion or Sirius. But also we're going to do a lot of practice. So that's the second class will focus more on experiential processes where we'll do, for instance, a breath work or astral projection to that star or constellation. We may invoke through the body through dance or qigong and let sort of authentic expression move through us, right? Because we don't just channel, like trance vocal channeling is one kind of channeling. But I've been a musician for 25 years, and especially in the last 5 years, my ambient music, I'm extremely convinced that this is coming from, parts of it is coming from Pleiades and the other is from Sirius. I sit down and I improvise a lot with my ambient guitar, and there's some very cosmic journeys that come through. And so that's part of how I channel, right? And some people channel through their painting, right? Or through their voice, or through writing. So we'll do writing exercises as well. So I really wanted to create an experiential class where we can channel the messages now
Yeah.
for ourselves, for our communities, and yeah, and allow all of us to open our ESP however that wants to show itself.
Right. A very variety class, very diverse in all the different types of experiences, and the modalities. But so I'm curious about this, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time, but only lately have I actually communicated about it. Was like when you get downloads from these systems, or is it ever like, do the Pleiadians call themselves Pleiadians? Do the Syrians call themselves Syrians? And aren't there multiple dimensions? And in some dimensions there is no physics, no life, maybe in lower dimensions. And aren't there many different types of races? How do you kind of like, speak on that?
Man, I'm so happy you asked that because, like, I heard you ask someone else this question recently, and I had thought of this question a while ago too. And I'm like, they don't, what do they call themselves? And that question is so interesting too, because I mean, even the star names, a lot of the star names come from the Arabic world, right?
Mhm.
In like the 1400s, 1500s, 1200s.
And
But
some
like
from Greece too.
some from Greece, but like that's only like that culture. Like that's not what indigenous cultures called that star or
Exactly. Yeah.
so like again, we're only and there is power, everyone knows, right? There's power in the word, there's power in the vibration of the sound. So what if we in our class chant different names for the stars or the constellations like the Pleiades or Alcyon or Orion from different cultures, like cultures that have referred to that constellation by that name for 2,000 years or 3,000 years or five or forever. That could be very powerful, right? But we are still operating in a very not only human-centric, anthropocentric, but in a culturally very specific box. And so we're coming out of that sort of Latinized Greco-Roman world, but we should refer to the plays by all their different names. That's why I'm doing this class, because I want to learn that. I don't know all the different names across cultures, but from China to India and so on and so forth. So there's that aspect of it. And then maybe we can quiet down and connect with a being from the Alcyon system or Taygeta or Merope. Like there's a, how, there's only like 7 or 8 we can see like with our naked eye, but there's at least 800 in this like star cluster of the Pleiades. And from what I've received, I mean, this is an extremely advanced civilization that has many, many, many civilizations that live within the Pleiades, right? Just like you would think. And there's how many planets with all of those stars, right? We're talking
Yeah.
vastness of consciousness that we have like this much knowledge about, and when you're in multi-dimensional reality, like we're, you know, it's hard for us to think that way because we're such terrestrial beings, but this is this is the opening. This is why this is called invoking our multi-dimensional heritage, because we can't we have to get outside of this uh, sort of third density vibration to open up to the possibilities of like, what do these beings sound like?
Mm.
How do they speak with each other? They might not even use like a vocal vibration like we do, right? Like
Right.
there's like 100 million possibilities, right? So, but we have to open to it. We have to create the space to open to it. So I
Right.
hope that answers the
Oh
question.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're just trying to figure it out as we move along together, you know? And as long as we have awareness on the fact that it is limiting and it is a label and we're just choosing it, that's a start, you know? And then also not to judge the labels because
Yeah,
Earth and humans, that's pretty much how linearity and this materialistic world was manifested, world of labels. And this materialistic third density world isn't a bad world, it's a gift.
yeah.
So it would make sense that because we made labels and because culture and language has shifted, that these beings would communicate in the language that we're used to, you know, like this is who I am.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's we all want to humans want to be able to categorize, but I think it's a strong egoic principle. Like the ego wants to maintain some kind of control or a sense of like I know what's happening, and so if I can think of like Arcturians like this and put them into this category,
Yeah.
experience like this, then it helps me navigate the unknown there. But in reality, like it's probably a million times more vast and complex than we want to admit to,
Right,
and
right.
it's kind of hard for us to contain that. And yet, that is what it means to raise our vibration or upgrade ourselves is to like open to that many possibilities,
Yeah.
And it makes me also just uh, yeah, there's just so much to think about with this because there's um, I guess the more we can open, the more ways that we can receive communications.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much to say with
As
that.
the more we wake up, the more we'll remember, and who knows what's gonna manifest then.
Well,
And
one question I have for you, Neil, because you've
yeah.
talked to so many people, is like, so even like a lot of times when these beings are visioned by artists, they're still anthropomorphic. They have like
Hmm.
a body that's very human-like. And in my journeys with Sirius specifically, I had this one past life journey where I was an Egyptian like priest and I was like a scribe, but I had this very kind of sacred role. But we would do this projection exercise, and we would work with this medicine. I don't know if it was the blue lotus or lily like the Egyptians worked with, but through the chamber, and I don't know if it was the king's chamber or exactly where it was, but through a pyramidal chamber, we would work with Sirius and we would project our consciousness there. And in this journey, I did this, and when I went to Sirius, all the beings there were various vibrations of color, and their color was determining their sacred geometry, and their geometry was moving. It wasn't like static, but it had a form, right? But it was in a constant motion, like a dance. And that felt like exactly much more accurate to what these, extra dimensional or higher vibrational energies would be like. They would not be in the bipedal form. They'd be in these exquisite auric geometries. And so I don't think that I don't think that many of these beings are like bipedal human looking at
Humanoids.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really I don't. But I don't know what you feel about that. But
So when I first started getting into all this and getting into channeling and the different dimensions,
yeah,
eighth dimensional Arcturians, ninth dimensional Arcturian, Palladians, and all that, I was told that at an early stage, and then I like other people had said the same thing, that the next dimension that we're going to is quasi-physical, which is half light, half flesh, and then the dimension after that, it's still quasi-physical, but you're tapped into more of a dimension of awareness, because every dimension is basically a data set of awareness that we tap into that connects us to more and more information, more and more experiences, more and more of the ability to break free from the matrix. And then after that one, which is the seventh dimension, we start either the seventh or the eighth. People have given me different, based on, I'm just telling you based on all the people that I've worked with, we become pure energy beings. And so they're talking about eighth dimensional Arcturians. And then you see people drawing the Arcturians as blue beings with these cloaks, right? And also the Arcturians having the most advanced technology. So these are the things that don't really connect with me, but I also realize we're multidimensional beings and there's a lot of things happening that I don't understand, because even though I have the potential to be like probably 12th dimensional, 12 chakra activation on this planet, I'm aware that I'm within a limited bandwidth of frequency, and it takes a certain level of practice and dedication to break free from that, right? So that humbles me enough to make me realize that I really have a limited perspective, and one of the things that really made me understand the limited perspective that we have is the fact that the universal paradox, the human brain can't understand a paradox. The universe is infinite, but it's also finite, because outside the universe are other universes that are with a multiverse. So how does that even make sense? How can the universe be infinite if it's also finite? And the fact that we don't understand that shows me that we're not at the spiritual level yet to grasp these concepts. So
yeah, and
yeah,
it brings up the idea of like the limitations of language. Like, so we're speaking in these terms of like 3D or fourth dimension or fourth density or fifth, but like that's not what a Palladian reference would be. So like
right.
this, it's such a narrow concept, and so I think more and more if we are going to connect with these vaster intelligences, let's say, um, we have to get out of even like the propensity of trying to name everything and categorize everything, and get more into experience. Like, and it's hard because we want to communicate about what's going on, so then we're looking for reference points. But that's where art is the greatest channel, because when you can paint something that's coming through, or a song is that vibration, right? Or your voice or movement, like in a way that's going to transcend the explication, right? That we try to do with our language, that is always going to be very limiting and ultimately probably not accurate, because what does it mean, like eighth dimension, ninth dimension? It's very hard for us to grasp that. But when we see an image that takes us somewhere else, or we hear that music, we get it. We can more easily journey into that dimension or level of consciousness together.
Yeah, and that's the channeling right there. The creative force of the universe, also the universe, the one verse. So the
Right.
vibration, the music, the poetry comes through, and you step aside, and you can almost tell when the ego mind gets involved in that process, it isn't as flowy as otherwise, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
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 So yeah, and this is a continuous question, a continuous conversation, really, because when it comes to dimensions, that is something just like the Palladian thing that we just spoke about, the ET thing. That's another thing that I've always thought about as well. Is that if, for example, Bashar from the Astasani calls us the masters of limitation, right? And it's a compliment. Okay, it's literally a compliment. Wow, you've mastered being limited. How amazing is this? Dolores Cannon and others say that this was a gift to come to this world. People not only wanted to be here and elected to be here, but they were also selected to be here. Right? It was like a twofer, and we got to this planet. So after experiencing so many things infinitely and many realms of no free will, we were given amnesia and free will to have this experience in which we can have a more of a range of frequencies. So within that, having this whole construct of hierarchy, third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, never made sense to me, because it's not like one dimension is better than the other, because the singularity, the duality comes from the singularity. The singularity doesn't engage in duality. Both polarities are a part of that singularity, so that the oneness doesn't judge either way. It's just the experience that it needs, right? So what I'm
Yeah.
getting at here is then we look at the Kali Yuga and the Yuga cycles. And the Yuga cycles, literally the Kali Yuga's theme is the age of hierarchy, which goes to show me that as we're shifting from this Kali Yuga age of hierarchy, we're moving into a reality where we're not going to look at things as so hierarchical anymore, right? And then our whole concept of language and the way we communicate about dimensions and all that will probably shift as well.
Yeah. That I've heard this concept of the sphere of nows, like from the Palladian perspective of like moving beyond our limitations of like time and space. And so we get very fixed on this linearity, but really like time is like a sphere, and there's all these now moments that already are existing, and we basically like magnetize them in through our consciousness. And this is really how time works. So it's not that there is like this happened before this. It's all possibility. It's all that holographic, mirror. And through our level of consciousness, we can attract in
Yes.
what we desire. And this is again, that's where we get a little bit stuck around like, oh, like talking about past lives or future lives, right? When it's really kind of a ongoing present nowness that can be anything and everything. And um, so that's something I think that's we're gonna play with in this training, like because I think I've done some work with regression therapy, and I think it's extremely powerful as long as we don't get locked into like one. And this is something I'm curious from your perspective on, like, because we can get really like, oh, I'm so Syrian in my energy, and that means this, and we can get too locked into again labeling. What we want to do is get inspired with new possibilities with this, but it's the same thing with like past lives or like, learning about an archetype that's within you that like, okay, maybe there's a wound there in that story of that character, and you can do healing with that, and it has like a teaching or a medicine for you, and you have a medicine or a teaching or a healing for that being, which is somehow connected to your soul, whether that's your past life or not. But there's some storyline there that needs to be woven into that now. And I think that's maybe a healthier perspective than trying to like own that I was this, right? Or I am this Syrian thing or this Palladian thing, and more like, my soul has this thread that I'm weaving with this. And how can that instruct me ultimately towards the path of the Bodhisattva? Like, I'm here as a servant of all beings to awaken all beings. And if this information from the Pleiades or Sirius or wherever it might be, and if this connection can help me do that, then it's valuable. And if it doesn't really help me do that, I don't know how valuable it really is.
Yeah. You know, um, I agree. I feel it's the theme that we have of that thing that we connect to, Pleiades, whatever,
Yeah.
that needs to be integrated. And that theme may have relevance to what we're doing now, but there is no better than. It's not like one is the other. And have heard many times individuals use names of areas they feel they're from because it's like better than not being from somewhere else, And like
Right, right.
I met somebody a few weeks ago at a sound healing event down here, and she was a sound practitioner. And at the end, they turned into a conversation of ETs. And then I was like, just said neutrally about Arcturus. And I always felt I was from Arcturus because of the technology and everything. But now I realize I'm from everywhere, and that theme really counts. And then she goes to me in kind of an egotistical way that, oh, I'm from Sirius because I'm here to help shift the consciousness, as if I was saying I'm into technology, like I'm an IT guy or something because I'm from Arcturus. But what I didn't say is that's why I do webinars to help shift the consciousness. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. The conversation died right there because I felt the energy from it all. But yeah, we want to relate to certain things and we identify with things, right? And we need to really check that it's just another theme, because ultimately I feel we've had many, many incarnations in many places, right?
Absolutely. And those teachings, but it is interesting to then apply the astrology and see like that you might have this extremely strong configuration there,
Yes.
and then it can validate why you felt that, with this certain race when you
Right.
looked at the sky and you looked at that star or constellation, you always felt something like that is really strong. And so then it's like, okay, so take some of these teachings, integrate them, but do your own experiential work, put all that together, and now what is the message for you? And that's what this training is about. And
Yes.
so
It's a key to remembering is what it's
yeah,
all about.
yeah,
So, all right, with that being said, let's go back to this here. And we have quite a few more people who joined us. So let me just explain what we're doing. So this is a spontaneous slash impromptu, only because we planned it 2 days ago. To me, that's spontaneous, in which I connect with VerDarLuz, and he's a pretty amazing person, actually, and I felt a real resonance with him, so I decided to go ahead and bring him on, introduce him to everybody here. He's going to be on the Portal Dissension Free Conference in April, in which he will be, I believe, doing some poetry. We're trying to figure out how we're going to weave everything in together, but you'll definitely see him there. Oh, and speaking about the astrological alignment
yeah,
that's
which I could
occurring.
definitely like give a 2 minute heads up. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to teach this class right now, because of the energies being so ripe for connecting with our star families. It's super strong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we just happened to do the free Portal Extension Conference, April 15th, 16th, 17th. Sign up at portalextension.org under online events, 35 speakers, 7 MCs, 3 days, 2 panels on the alignment day. So VerDarLuz is going to be in the beginning, breaking it down for us, letting us know, what's actually happening. But this right here is his course that he's put together. I've seen a lot of courses, guys, and this one has a huge amount of awareness and funneled in such an incredible way, where we spoke just a little bit about it, but let me show you again. Mythology, astronomy, sacred sites, astrology, channeled teachings, ceremonial magic, embodied shamanic practices. And this is starting at the next week, I believe, starting next week. And just tell everybody really quick about the portal breakdown, and
Sure,
before
yeah.
we close this session out today. So let me get
Yeah,
there.
thanks so much. Yeah, so like Portal 1 is going to be 4 classes, and I call them galactivation. So we have the Orion galactivation and the Palladian galactivation. So each of those are 2 classes, so two of each star system. And the first one is more about the learning of the mythologies, the astronomy, the sacred sites, just really discovering and connecting with that star or that constellation. So in the first one, Orion, for instance, and the various stars there, the mythologies around the world. And then the next class will be a lot more of those experiences where we're opening up our channels through breath work and dance and writing and experiential processes. So like here's the actual curriculum of the class 1. We are going to push it back 1 week, so it's going to start on the 22nd. Try to bring in more people. I'm actually teaching at an event for the spring equinox this weekend, and it's in Crestone. And maybe some of your listeners know that Crestone is the #1 location in the U.S. both historically with the indigenous people and currently for UFO sightings. And that's why I know that there's been a lot of CE5 with Stephen Greer around Crestone and the sand dunes region there. So going there, and I'm going to talk about the training more there. But you'll see, yeah, we're gonna look at the life cycle of stars because we're going to talk about the Orion Nebula and the many other nebulas that are there in Orion. We'll be working with obviously some of the Egyptian teachings because of the belt stars and the Hopi teachings, very connected with Orion. And then here's some of the practices we'll be doing in that first class. This is leading towards many classes. So we have the first portal being the 4 classes. The second portal will have different stars. So in the second portal, which would start in May, we will start working with Sirius, and then we'll look at Arcturus and Vega, and maybe Lyra. I have to look at the schedule and see what's going to make sense. And so then we'll be taking the same approach. We'll be looking at the mythology, the astronomy, the astrology, cross-culturally, and ideally we're going to work with that throughout the rest of the year. So every few months is a new portal with 2 new star systems or constellations, and yeah, it's really to open our multidimensional and more galactic sense of who we are.
So check it out, everybody. I put the link in the comments in the live chat in YouTube. It's in the description of YouTube. It's in the description in the podcast. Do connect with VerDarLuz. Check his website out, or just go to his own general website and learn about all the information that he has there and what he's sharing. Because this is just another step in another course been divinely orchestrated in order to assist us in remembering who we are. And I particularly did this one so quickly because of how full circle it is, in that how much awareness you get in in these compact classes. It's really hitting it at many different angles, understanding your ancient history, how it connects to mythology, connecting it to astrology and how to navigate that, what your themes and what planets are connected to the theme of your life right now, and the messages from all these different planetary bodies, as well as how to embody this: dance, writing, music, so many different things. So do check it out. All right, brother, as we close out here, do you want to leave us with some final thoughts? Let me know. You're going to share maybe how you're feeling right now as time is shifting, as we perceive this external reality, but we still move forward to this evolution. And then maybe also if anything else that you want to share in regards to what you're up to.
Yeah, well, I'll just share about this alignment. Jupiter and Neptune are coming together for the first time in the last 13 years, but it's more significant because they're in Pisces. And Jupiter and Neptune are both the most spiritual planets in astrology. Jupiter expands and amplifies our spirit, it grows our faith, and especially around Neptunian themes now, which Neptune is about the dissolution of boundaries and the return to our source. So this is a time where the spirit of Jupiter can amplify our ability to open to the cosmic oneness. And that's where I believe that, the angelic realms, the avatars, the ascended masters, our alien and star families, we can access them very, very easily. Like the veil is very thin. And so over the month of April specifically, it's going to be very, very strong. And, the power of meditation and channeling and arts is going to be really, potent to connect here. So that's part of why I did this training right now. And I think that there's a huge opening for us with this. So that's the invitation for everyone, is to stay very open, do a lot of art, do a lot of channeling, work with your imagination, a lot more meditation, expand your spiritual practice, whatever those may be right now. I've been writing a lot of poetry. I'm happy to share a poem if you'd like. And my sense is that the more like writing right now, music, everything will be feeling like it's coming from our higher selves or our multidimensional selves. And so that's why just staying open to it, giving yourself practice time every day to allow that to come through is vital.
Most definitely, brother. And yeah, let's close out with some poetry. Please do.
Cool. Well, I've been working with Egypt a lot since I was there last year, so there's a few references here. And I do a practice every day where I do Qigong and I breathe the sun in through my mouth and through my breath, through different movements. And really have felt a lot of life and light come through that way. So this is after, a morning practice. Upon the altar of this dawn, a communion with Khepera. And Khepera was the name of the morning sun, because the sun has different names in the Egyptian tradition throughout the day. Upon the altar of this dawn, a communion with Khepera, I swallow the flesh of our Father who art this sun, and so reborn I am the golden one, honored by breath, the holy vehicle by which I come to confess the day into existence. Honored by breath, the holy vehicle by which I come to confess this day into existence in service of Ma'at, justice. Ma'at, verse burns her oracular truth through my throat to find Thoth in the previous words. Truth, throat, Thoth, Jehuti, singe my tongue, the message of the hidden stars, the trillion gods waiting for us to remember them with prayer. You will travel there with prayer. You will deliver your celestial family here. Oh.
Beautiful, brother. And so it is.
Yeah, so it is. I hope.
Thank you so much, man. It's been beautiful speaking with you. And everybody, again, check out the website. It's in the description. And you will definitely see VerDarLuz again and again on Portal to Ascension, starting with the April event. So check that out as well. So
yeah,
thank you all so much.
Link to some music too. So if people want to journey to some of the music, maybe we could put it in the YouTube after. And
all right, yeah.
Love to share that with everyone for your meditations. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Send me the link again so I can just have it readily available. Put it in.
Right. Thanks again. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody, so much. Love you all. And we will be back soon. See you guys later. Okay. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.